They say family should lift you up. But what happens when the ones closest to you are the very ones tearing you down? Broken heart. On the night my daughter was supposed to shine, her aunt destroyed her dress in front of the entire crowd, leaving her broken, humiliated, and on the verge of giving up. For a moment I thought everything was lost. But what she did next left the entire auditorium breathless. Sparkle, she turned pain into power, sabotage into strength, and humiliation into a fire so fierce. Even her enemies couldn't look away. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about resilience, courage, and the unstoppable spirit of a girl who refused to let jealousy define her. By the end, you'll see how one act of cruelty lit the spark for a victory no one could deny. They say family should be your safe place. But what happens when the very people you trust most sharpen their knives behind your back? For me, it started with my daughter's school showcase. She's 10 years old, and for months she had been pouring her entire soul into preparing for it. The school called it a spring gala, but to her it was the Olympics, Broadway, and the Grammys all rolled into one. She designed her own costume, practiced her routine until her little knees were bruised, and carried her sketchbook around like it was a diary. Every doodle, every scrap of fabric, every glitter stain on our carpet, it all led to this one night. And as her mom, watching her so determined, so excited, I thought, this is going to be her moment. This is the night she'll shine. I was wrong. Because just 30 minutes before her turn to go on stage, my sister, my own flesh and blood, did something that I'll never forget. But before I tell you what she did, you need to understand something about us. My sister and I were raised in a house where competition wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. She was the golden child, always the lead in the school play, the one with the perfect curls in the family Christmas card. And me. I was the shadow. The other one. If she won, my parents cheered like she was royalty. If I even tried, I was told not to embarrass myself. That was the script of our childhood. She was meant to shine. I was meant to applaud. I thought things would change when we grew up. I thought maybe motherhood would soften her, make her kinder. But when her daughter and mine ended up in the same school, in the same grade, that old rivalry reignited like it had been waiting all along. Her daughter, Sophie, is talented, no doubt. But my sister, she doesn't just want her child to succeed, she wants mine to disappear. Fast forward to the night of the spring gala. My daughter, Layla, had been rehearsing for months. Her costume was a patchwork of silver and blue, with sequins she'd glued herself and a cape that fluttered like wings when she spun. She wanted to look like a storm turned into a girl, her exact words. She was nervous, of course. She chewed her lip until it was raw. I sat beside her in the dressing room, brushing her hair, telling her she'd be amazing. Then a teacher came to get me. I needed to sign a release form at the front desk. I hesitated. Layla begged me, "Please, Mom, go. I'll be fine. I just need to practice once more." So I kissed her forehead, squeezed her hand, and stepped out. That was my mistake. When I came back 10 minutes later, Layla wasn't fine. She was standing in the middle of the dressing room, sobbing, clutching her costume. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. The silver fabric was ripped jagged across the chest. The cape hung in tatters. And splattered across the sequins was a streak of sticky black paint, dripping down like blood. She choked out words through her tears. It was Aunt Clara. My heart slammed against my ribs. Well, she wouldn't. She couldn't. But she had. My daughter's costume wasn't an accident. It was vandalized, sabotaged, destroyed. And when I stepped into the hallway, there she was, Clara, my sister, standing with her arms crossed, her face perfectly calm, as though nothing had happened. I confronted her right there. "Did you do this?" Her eyebrows arched. "Me? Don't be ridiculous." Maybe Layla tripped. Kids exaggerate. I wanted to believe she was lying out of fear. I wanted to believe she wasn't capable of something so cruel. But then, she leaned closer so only I could hear. And she whispered, "Now Sophie will win. Finally." My throat went dry. My palms shook. I swear in that moment I wanted to scream so loud the whole school would hear. But my daughter was watching. Broken costume, broken heart. And I couldn't fall apart in front of her. I swallowed the fire in my chest and said nothing. But inside something shifted. I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. I closed the dressing room door and found Layla curled in the chair, her little hands still clutching at the shredded fabric. Her shoulders shook with each sob, and I swear my heart broke into pieces seeing her like that. I knelt down in front of her, forcing my voice to stay steady. Hey, look at me. We still have time. We're not giving up. She shook her head hard. It's ruined, Mom. Everyone's going to laugh. I can't go out there like this. Tears streaked her cheeks, and for a moment I had no words. I wanted to hold her and cry with her. But then something inside me snapped, the same something that had kept me quiet for years whenever my sister stole the spotlight. Not tonight. Layla, I whispered, brushing her hair out of her face. Do you still have your phone? She blinked at me, confused. In my bag, why? I rummaged through her backpack, hands shaking, until I found it. The screen was cracked at the corner, smudged with glitter glue from some art project, but it lit up when I pressed the button. I swiped through the gallery and then my breath caught. Video. Recorded just 20 minutes earlier. Press play. The camera angle was low, propped against a stack of books on the vanity. It showed Layla twirling in her costume, practicing her routine. Then the door opened and Clara walked in. My sister. The video captured everything. Her hand yanking at the fabric. The awful tearing sound that made my skin crawl. The splash of paint, thick and dark, dripping over the sequins. And then, clear as day, her voice. Now Sophie will win. I nearly dropped the phone. My pulse roared in my ears. Proof. After years of her manipulations being brushed off, excused, defended by my parents, this was undeniable. She couldn't hide from it. Layla's eyes widened when she saw it. Mom, does this mean? It means we're not finished, I said firmly, and for the first time that night I believed it. But 30 minutes. That's all we had until her performance. 30 minutes to fix the unfixable. I grabbed the emergency sewing kit I always carried. Tiny scissors, a needle, some thread. But as I stared at the shredded costume, I knew I couldn't repair it in time. Not properly. So instead, I adapted. I began cutting the fabric deliberately, shaping the jagged tears into patterns. Where Clara had splashed paint, I smeared it further, dragging my fingers across the fabric until it looked intentional, like flames licking at the silver. I tore the cape into sharp, uneven strips that fanned out like wings. Layla watched in silence, her tears drying as she realized what I was doing. It's not broken, I told her. It's transformed. You're not a storm anymore, you're fire. Her lip trembled, but her eyes flickered with something fierce. Determination. When the teacher returned to say the judges had agreed to let Layla perform last, I nearly sagged in relief. That extra time was everything. We worked together until the final call came. Her hair was wild, her makeup smudged from crying, but when she stepped toward the stage entrance, she looked unstoppable. The lights dimmed. The audience murmured. Then the projector above the stage flickered on. I hadn't expected that part. Layla must have told the tech crew about the video, because suddenly, on the giant screen above the stage, Clara appeared. The footage from Layla's phone played for everyone to see. The ripping fabric, the paint splashing, her voice dripping with malice. Now Sophie will win. Gasps rippled through the auditorium. Parents leaned forward. Teachers whispered. I heard Sophie's gasp from the row in front of me. And Clara, my sister, froze. Her face drained of color. And then, as the audience still reeled, the spotlight came up on Layla. She stepped onto the stage. Her ruined costume now a blazing, jagged piece of art. The music began. At first I couldn't breathe. But as she moved, I realized she wasn't just performing a routine. She was telling a story. Every spin was defiance. Every leap was pain turned into strength. When she dropped to her knees and rose again, her cape shredding like fire behind her, the room went silent. People weren't just watching, they were feeling. Layla's body spoke louder than any words ever could. And I swear in those 3 minutes, she wasn't just my daughter. She was a warrior. When the music ended, she froze in her final pose, arms outstretched, chest heaving. The entire auditorium held its breath. Then applause. It started as a ripple, then a wave, then a thunderous roar that shook the walls. Parents stood. Kids shouted her name. Teachers clapped until their hands were red. And Layla, my Layla, stood taller than I had ever seen her. But as the cheers rose, my eyes locked on Clara. She sat frozen in her seat, jaw clenched, eyes darting between me, the stage and the screen above. Her daughter sat beside her, tears streaming down her cheeks. And in that moment I realized something. This wasn't just about a ruined costume anymore. It was about years, decades, of letting her win at my expense. Not anymore. The judges left to deliberate. Layla returned to me, flushed, glowing, buzzing like she'd swallowed lightning. I wrapped my arms around her, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." But my stomach churned as I watched my parents approach Clara in the row ahead, whispering, nodding, plotting. Even after what everyone had just seen, even after their granddaughter had been humiliated and then risen above it, they still leaned toward Clara. Course they did. Because in their eyes, she was still the golden one. And I was still the problem. At least that's what they thought. But the night wasn't over yet. And the next decision would change everything. The applause still echoed in my ears long after Layla stepped off the stage. She clutched my hand so tightly I thought she might never let go, and I didn't want her to. Not after what she had just done. She had turned sabotage into fire. But as we waited for the judges to return, my stomach twisted. I knew how this worked. I had lived my whole life under Clara's shadow. She was the golden child, the chosen one, the one my parents defended no matter what. Proof didn't matter. Justice never mattered. It was always about Clara. The auditorium buzzed with whispers. Parents discussed the shocking video. Kids replayed Layla's routine on their phones. Teachers huddled, glancing at Clara with thinly veiled disgust. For once, the tide wasn't in her favor. And she knew it. My sister sat 3 rows ahead, stiff and pale, Sophie clinging to her side. Every so often, Clara's eyes flicked back toward me, burning, hateful. I almost pitied her. Almost. The judges returned at last, holding a golden envelope. The head judge, Mrs. Ramirez, stepped forward. She was a woman who valued honesty and integrity, qualities Clara had never possessed. My breath caught as she began to speak. Tonight, we witnessed incredible talent, creativity, and resilience. One performance stood out, not only for its artistry but for its courage. The first place award goes to... Pause. I gripped Layla's hand tighter. Layla Morgan. The auditorium erupted. Cheers, stomping, clapping. Layla froze for half a heartbeat, then gasped, covering her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she turned to me. Mom, I won. Yes, baby. You won. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. We walked to the stage together. The medal gleamed as they placed it around her neck. Cameras flashed. The audience cheered her name. My daughter stood taller than I had ever seen her, the weight of every insult, every dismissal, every betrayal lifting off her shoulders. But as I looked out at the crowd, my gaze caught Clara's. Her face was a storm. Rage, shame, disbelief all colliding at once. Sophie sat slumped beside her, tears streaking her face, while my parents patted Clara's shoulder as though she were the true victim. And something inside me snapped. After the ceremony, as families gathered in the lobby, I approached Clara. The crowd parted slightly, sensing the tension. My parents turned, their faces pinched, already preparing to defend her. I held up Layla's phone. The screen still displayed the incriminating video. "Explain this," I demanded, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Clara's jaw tightened. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean." "Don't you dare." My voice rose, stronger than I'd ever heard it. "Don't you dare lie in front of her." I gestured toward Layla, who stood clutching her medal, eyes fierce. Whispers spread through the lobby. Other parents edged closer, listening. Clara stammered. "It was just a costume." "Just a costume." I laughed bitterly. "You humiliated your own niece to make your daughter shine. And you've been doing the same thing to me my entire life. Every achievement, every moment. I was always second place because you couldn't stand to share the spotlight." My parents rushed forward, hands raised. "Enough, Allison. Stop making a scene." But I didn't stop. Not this time. "No," I said, my voice steady, echoing through the lobby. "You've covered for her long enough. You let her sabotage me, manipulate me, tear me down. And now you've let her do it to Layla. But look around." I gestured to the families staring, the teachers frowning, the judges shaking their heads. Nobody believes her anymore. Everyone saw the truth. Clara's face crumpled. For once, her perfect mask cracked. "And Sophie? Sweet Sophie," she turned to her mother with wide, wet eyes. "You did that. You ruined Layla's dress." Clara reached for her, but Sophie pulled back. The silence that followed was louder than any accusation. My parents sputtered excuses, their words falling flat. No one listened. The weight of years of injustice, favoritism, cruelty, hung in the air, undeniable now. I looked down at Layla, her medal gleaming, her chin held high. "You don't ever have to let someone dim your light for their comfort," I whispered. "Not even family." She nodded, her eyes shining with pride. That night, as we drove home, the medal dangling from the rearview mirror, Layla leaned against me. "Mom." "Yes, love. Do you think Aunt Clara will ever change?" I thought of Clara's face, twisted with rage and shame. I thought of Sophie's tears. I thought of my parents, still clutching their golden child like a lifeline. "I don't know," I admitted. "But that's not our responsibility. We don't need their approval to shine. We never did." Layla smiled softly, drifting off to sleep. As I drove through the quiet streets, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the shadow. I wasn't the forgotten sister. I wasn't the problem child. I was the mother of a warrior. And together we had turned sabotage into strength, humiliation into triumph, pain into fire. The legacy of favoritism ended here. Because my daughter had proven, to me, to them, to the world, that no one could destroy her spirit. Not even Clara. Epilogue. Months later, Layla's performance video went viral. Not just because of her incredible dance, but because of the story behind it. The betrayal, the transformation, the triumph. People from around the world commented, calling her the Phoenix, the girl who rose from ashes. Layla received invitations to perform at other events, her confidence growing with each step. She learned that her scars, the ruined costume, the humiliation, were not weaknesses, but marks of resilience. As for Clara, whispers followed her everywhere. Parents no longer trusted her. Sophie grew distant, embarrassed by her mother's actions. My parents, clinging desperately to their golden child, found themselves isolated too. And me. I finally learned the lesson I should have known years ago. When you stop giving someone the power to define you, they lose their control. Layla didn't just win a competition. She won her freedom. And so did I.